Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
I have one, and I apologize for it not being on the agenda before, but it actually transpired an hour ago, and it's a rate review committee.
Under new business,
Yes,
selectmen's
please.
questions?
Yes.
Excellent. Any other amendments? We have a motion to approve the
I make a motion to approve the amendment to the agenda.
second.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. We have no announcements tonight, but I do want to welcome Alex Hertz from Ayer Regional High School this evening as our student reporter. And I will open up to public input. All right, seems to be none. So the first item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing for the poll petition, National Grid and Verizon on Elm Street. Ask the clerk to read out the public hearing.
The Ayer Board of Selectmen will be conducting a public hearing on Tuesday, February 18th, 2020 at 6 p.m. at the Ayer Town Hall, first floor meeting room, 1 Main Street, Ayer, Mass. 01432, regarding the petition by National Grid and Verizon New England Incorporated to locate permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Elm Street, National Grid to relocate 1 JO pole on Elm Street, National Grid to relocate pole 1 and move 2 to 3 feet away from the hydrant.
Yeah. please.
Name of applicant, National Grid and Verizon. The date of the public hearing is Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. The time of the public hearing is 6 p.m. Location of the public hearing, first floor meeting room, Ayer Town Hall, 1 Main Street, Ayer, Mass. 01432. Copies of the application are available at the Ayer Board of Selectmen's office Monday, Wednesday, and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Tuesdays, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Fridays, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Thank you very much. Welcome, can you just say your name?
Yes, hi, Steve Susi from National Grid. The reason why we're petitioning this pole here on Elm Street and the next petition as well, they're part of a Department of Transportation job that we have, so they're widening the roads in your area on Elm Street and also on Main Street, and we have to relocate the poles because of that.
Okay. Is there anyone here for the public hearing this evening from Elm Street? Do you have anything you'd like to add or ask questions regarding?
Well, I'm just curious about where they're going to move the pole to. It said, I'm on the corner of East Main and Elm Street. Right there at the corner.
Just as the thing said, it's gonna be 6 feet back, basically, from its present location. So they're just moving the poles 6 feet because they're widening the road. So it's gonna be in line with Elm Street. And, you know, the pole's going down there. It's just, as it says, it's just moving it down. Generously 2 or 3 feet from the fire hydrant. I walked it off and measured it. It's gonna be more like 4 feet, but you know how things are, it might be 2 or 3 feet from that, but it's going to be in line with the poles going down Elm Street.
Okay, so it's just moving further back from East Main Street
Okay,
by about 4 to 6 feet.
okay, thank you.
Okay? All right, excellent.
And I think there was a question back here.
Not really a question. I think I understand what's going on. This is not to scale, right? The maps that we're...
No, we can't, just so you would see the poles on that, if it was to scale, the pole would be 10 feet wide. So we're just putting basically a general area of where the pole is going to be.
Yeah, the only concern we would have is getting out of the driveway, because it's right near the corner of the driveway. But if I'm understanding it correctly, it's not gonna be, it's gonna be more in the middle of the two properties, in that straight stretch of grass, fronted by a picket fence, is that true?
It's gonna be further, just where it is, back 6 feet. So it didn't, when I was out there last week, I didn't see that it was in the middle of a driveway. It was basically just going down the sidewalk. Like I said, 2 to 4 feet from that hydrant, that's where that pole is going to be, in line with the existing pole line down Elm Street.
When you say back, you mean,
Back from the East Main
But
Street.
is it possible for you to borrow that?
Yeah, it's just-
On the video, on the
I-
PowerPoint?
yeah, this is East Main Street that I'm talking about.
Yeah, so though it's not to scale, this is approximate.
So-
The X would be the new pole, so the existing pole is the circle with an X through it. 6 feet down Elm Street is going to be that, right in line with the existing pole line.
I'm not concerned about Elm Street, I live on East Main
All
Street.
right, so that's the next public hearing.
Okay,
We need like 3 minutes, we'll get to that one.
okay, sorry.
Okay, no worries.
And just can we get the name of that person that has the question?
Oh, sorry, can you say your name, please, for the record?
Joe Murphy.
Joe Murphy? Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Martin, Selectman Hood, if I may,
Please.
this is part of the East Main Street project that we're just about ready to bid. So if anybody does have questions that they want me to come out in the field with them, I can meet them out there. I know I've met with
Okay.
Mrs. Murphy at her yard before, and so maybe can call the DPW and
Okay, so I'll just say for everyone at home, so the DPW Superintendent Mark Wetzel is willing to answer any questions or do any site walks regarding the pole movements that we're discussing tonight, because they're part of the larger project for East Main Street.
You can just say to approve as submitted. That's good.
I'll make a motion to approve the poll petition for National Grid and Verizon on Elm Street as submitted.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Elm approved. Can I get a motion to close the first public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing on the poll petition for Elm Street.
Second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair says aye. All right, on to the next one, which is East Main Street.
The Ayer Board of Selectmen will be conducting a public hearing on Tuesday, February 18th, 2020 at 6:05 at the Ayer Town Hall, first floor meeting room, 1 Main Street, Ayer, Mass. 01432, regarding a petition by National Grid and Verizon New England Incorporated to locate, permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures, along and across the following public way. East Main Street, National Grid to relocate 2 JO poles on East Main Street. National Grid to relocate pole 30 on East Main Street approximately 10 feet west of current location. Relocate pole 31 East Main Street approximately 6 feet east of current location. Name of the applicant is National Grid and Verizon. Date of the public hearing, Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. Time of the public hearing, 6:05 PM. Location of public hearing, first floor meeting room, Ayer Town Hall, 1 Main Street, Ayer, Mass. 01432. Copies of this application are available at the Ayer Board of Selectmen's office Monday, Wednesday, and Thursdays from 8 AM to 4 PM, Tuesdays from 8 AM to 7 PM, and Fridays from 8 AM to 1 PM.
All right, thank you. Steve, you want to walk us through what we're going to do on this one?
The poles that we're going to be, one is the one that is on the thing, is Livingston Street. That is gonna be moved into like 6 feet eastward, and the other one is gonna be 10 feet in a northwest. So they're both gonna be, moved away from Page Street and Livingston Street.
Okay, and we had a question on this one before.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Certainly.
confirm it's gonna be far enough away from the drive. We've had people bump the corner of the fence between the two properties and turning on the drive. This is a very narrow drive. But as long as this is not to scale, I looked at the distance physically. I went out there and 6 feet away from, if that's true, 6 feet away from where the pole is now would put it far enough away from the driveway to not be a concern.
Okay. Do you mind stating your name for the record, please?
Kathleen Dupre.
Kathleen Dupre, thank you. Any other questions on this petition? No?
Make a motion to accept the poll petition as submitted by National Grid and Verizon for the East Main Street.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. It's approved.
Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for East Main Street.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda we have this evening is Superintendent Mark Wetzel, Department of Public Works, to discuss execution of order of takings for a temporary easements for East Main Street. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. So we had a good lead-in for showing that this project might really happen. And
Love
so
your optimism.
one of the last steps before we can actually put the project out to bid, this is a federal requirement, is that we have to there's two permanent easements, and I think it's 52 temporary construction easements that we are physically taking the easements. For the temporary easements are for a 3-year period. The two permanent easements are for utility access, and a little bit, there's some right-of-way on Livingston Street where the road doesn't really fit in the layout. So the process is we had an appraiser go out and appraise all the properties and the values of the easements. We sent out offer letters to compensate for the 3-year temporary easement. So we're basically renting the property from them during construction. And so the final step is for the selectmen to execute the order of taking for all of these temporary easements. So we've got 2 copies for signature by the board. A lot of this it spells out exactly which parcels and who the owners are, and how much we have damages awards that we'll be paying sometime probably within the next 4 to 6 weeks. And this was authorized with Article 35 of the May annual town meeting in 2019. So for the selectmen to execute the awards. So the next step is after you sign these, then we have to go to the registry, record all the easements, and then we send out checks, and then we're ready to go.
And all the people have been notified, and there's been no issues?
No, we did have, I think it was 5 property owners donated the damage award to the town, so we don't have to pay them. And as far as I know, the last issue that we're waiting on, which will probably happen at your next meeting, is we need to get a license agreement with the courthouse. So they've been working on that for a few months now. We're getting this close. So this is the order of taking for execution by the board. And then
And we've already voted on this previously. I feel like we've talked
Yeah,
about
we have
this.
talked. we
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah,
this
you
a
haven't
month or
voted
two ago.
specifically to execute this document, so this is a legal document that town council put together for us.
Okay. So now we need to vote to execute. Okay.
Yes.
Any questions, John?
No.
No? Okay, I think it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
questions.
I just wanted to make sure, because just Seems like we talk about it all the time.
Well, you know, it's.
Like, what step are we this week?
You know, and then just sort of as an update, I forget the exact bid date, but I want to say they're looking to advertise it in late March. I want to say March 28th, but don't quote me on
Of
that.
2020, right?
Right, this next month.
Checking.
But as with a lot of these MassDOT projects, it takes a little while after they advertise them to, you know, go through the whole bidding process. But hopefully sometime this summer, we'll have a shovel in the ground out there. Prior to that, we will definitely have a public meeting to let everybody know what the schedule is, what the impacts are during construction. And believe me, you know, you see how busy that road is, there's gonna be some construction impacts. So we just want to make sure that everybody in town knows what's going on, knows what the impacts are going to be. People, you know, are going to have some limitations when they're doing work right in front of their house on what they can do. We'll make sure everybody's in the loop on that. So it's going to be a big change in the community. It's going to be a huge improvement.
Yes, looking forward to it. It's been a long
This
time
started
coming.
like 7 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I submitted the application in 2013, so 7 years ago. And we'll start working on doing Main Street next. So,
Pretty
let's
quick
see.
for a state
Robert will be
project.
retired by then.
All right.
There's a motion to execute the order.
I'll make a motion to execute the order.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair says aye. All set.
I'll notarize it after you
Okay.
have it.
Yeah.
I'll bring it up and then, yeah. Thanks.
You're like the only legible signature on the document. You.
Oh,
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Have a good night. Okay, up next, we have the opening of the annual town meeting on May 11th, 2020. Opening the warrant for that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and I know it's still February, but before you know it, spring will be here. As is custom practice, we respectfully ask the Board of Selectmen to take a vote to officially open the town meeting warrant, in this case for the annual town meeting, which will be on Monday, May 11th, 2020 at 7 PM in the high school auditorium. And just point out that the deadline for all citizens petitions will be Friday, April 3rd at noon.
All right, thank you.
well, I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen open the annual town meeting warrant.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Chair says aye. Approved, we're open.
we're open.
We're good.
Great.
Excellent. Now on to the town manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. You have in your packet all of the town warrants that were reviewed and approved since the board last met on February 4th. And in terms of the administrative update, I will be brief as I have quite a few items tonight under my report. But as I mentioned when we met on February 4th, right now it's really all things FY21 budget as we move forward. As I mentioned on the 4th, and still holds true today on the 18th, we remain on schedule for the FY21 budget. We will now, with the board opening up the annual town meeting warrant, begin to develop the warrant. As I do that in the past, I will transmit to the Board of Selectmen draft versions of that warrant, and we'll be discussing the warrant as we move forward on future meetings. In fact, we'll touch upon some of the potential items this evening. So we are in good shape in that area. I do want to mention to the selectmen that the town continues to implement the downtown parking plan, and we appreciate the public's patience and cooperation with that as Chief Murray and the DPW begin to implement that. The chief continues to gradually introduce the enforcement, which he feels and I agree is a fair approach as opposed to just, and the public has seen the plan and most of the signs have been ordered. There are still some signs to be put up. In enforcement, I think the police are proceeding in a very pragmatic way with full enforcement. We have gotten a lot of calls and so forth about issues of enforcement. When is enforcement going to start and so forth? But that is ramping up. As always, any complaints or concerns that selectmen have or members of the public have, we encourage to contact my office and or the chief's office. I know that Chief Murray has been very responsive and has been out in the field on that. I'd also suggest through the chair in talking with the chief that he come to the second meeting in March to discuss with the board further, because he believes by the second meeting in March we will have been in full implementation and enforcement and have some more discussion about the parking plan. As we mentioned, no plan is perfect. Any plan in terms of implementation has some growing pains and is subject to some changes and some revisions. But again, our goal and the goal of the chief with the parking plan is to, one, maximize the use of the commuter parking facility now that it's open, and designed to maximize the side streets not being parked on by commuters and so forth that have had a negative and frustrating impact on the residents that live there through the years. So that's the goal as we move forward. So I would suggest for the second meeting in March, we could make arrangements for the chief to come on that. When we last met on February 4th, I also indicated to the board that we would be meeting with Mark regarding phase 2 of the project, phase 1 being completed, now to phase 2, which is the improvements to Depot Square. We did meet at length with Mark on February 6th, all of the public safety departments, as well as Alan from the Department of Economic Development, and we took a lot of the input that some of you were at the 2 design sessions that Alan had for the public about what we want Depot Square to look like, what we don't want it to look like, and some of the conceptual issues that we face. So from that meeting, Mark took all of that information and the information from the town and is in the process of doing 2 things at our request. One, maximizing the amount of available funds, which are tight. As the board's aware, we have $250,000 from Senator Eldridge's earmark for improvements. The bathroom building is part of the project, so that's not additional funding. And then figuring out what else we need to do in terms of funding there. The main focus is the bathroom building, the driveway drop-off area, the commuter waiting stations, the implementation of the historic fountain, in making Depot Square truly look like what the public expects it to look like as well. I've asked for Mark, and they're working on this so that I can transmit this to the Board of Selectmen and to the public, 2 things. One, to put together a detailed budget for the project, but also more importantly, a schedule so we're all on the same page, because the goal is to have the appropriate shovels in the ground and to have the next phase start as soon as possible this spring, which Mark will be overseeing that aspect of the project. So as soon as I have that information, I will transmit that to the board as we move forward. Also, phase 2 includes the crosswalk improvements to Main Street. There have been some delays there, obviously. That hasn't been put up yet, but we will have more shortly on that.
It should be tomorrow, actually. It got delayed, the installation will be tomorrow. That's the plan at 6:24 p.m. Yeah.
And one of the last things I want to mention, because this came up through the parking plan as well, that handicap parking remains at Depot Square now, and the goal is for handicap parking to remain during the construction. We're going to have to get creative, but in the conversation I had with Mark, how do we have handicap parking and also the appropriate commuter access to the platform during the construction was another major topic during that. And of course, when the project's completed, there is dedicated handicap parking at Depot Square. Lastly, One of the things, and Selectman Livingston may touch upon this later as well, as we continue to meet with the Devens Committee with Mass Development, the need to get the local committee together, and I know, Mr. Chairman, you've asked about this as well. Our local Devens Committee, now that we have the citizens representatives, Selectman Hood is on that, Alan is on that. I've really stressed to the planning board, and it's not from a lack of asking, that they need to pick 2 representatives. Ideally, I think if we can have that a first initial meeting in March. At the last meeting Janice and I were at, of course, Harvard's local committee is further along in the process. Shirley, from that meeting, seemed to indicate they want to get their local committee going. And so Harvard's ahead in this feat. We're sort of in the middle in Shirley, but the consensus coming from that meeting is to get the local committees together to identify these local issues. So I just wanted to bring that up, that the planning board representatives don't require a vote from this body, but that I've stressed that in the next week to 10 days, if they could select who their 2 representatives, that would be great. So with that, item number 2 I had put on here as sort of a placeholder for the FY21 budget update, and sort of the action items I have following that sort of constitute the budget update for this evening. Just a couple final points, just to remind the board that we will be having a joint meeting with the FinCom next Tuesday, the 25th at 6, when Dr. Malone and the school committee come down to present the FY21 school budget and assessment, which, as we've discussed, is a significant building block to our budget. So we have that meeting coming up. And then on March 9th, we have the joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and FinCom, where the administration comes back with part 2 of the public budget presentation as well. So a couple of things on the horizon. So with that, I would ask, if there is an objection from the chair, to ask Ms. Cabri, the finance manager, to come up to the table. You okay? And item number 3 under my report that we wanted to, and I should say, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, all of these items for tonight are to start the discussion and for informational purposes. There's no expectation for the board to take a vote or action just yet, because there are, I think, things to think about and some decisions to be made. But the first item we would like to talk with you about is the idea of a proposal for a compensated balances budget line item. And as you see in the packet, Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 13D, if town meeting accepts it, allows a town to set up a compensated balance account within the budget. And then in that budget line item, you would fund all of your compensated balances. The biggest one, we all know, are any retirements. But it could be also any separation from service where you have to pay out any accrued vacation or other benefits. Why is this significant? Well, first of all, as Ms. Cabri has identified in her memo, there's about $478,000 is the unfunded liability, if you will. And in the past, what we've done, as many of you know, is when we know of a retirement, we budget for it within the department that position is in. That's the easy part. The challenge is a lot of retirements we don't know during the budget formulation period. They happen mid-year, end-year, and so forth. And then we have to sometimes sort of scramble to pay them. And the method that we've often paid them is through the reserve fund, which right now there's $150,000 in the reserve fund. We believe that it would make best budgetary planning process, it would make best practices as recommended as a best practice, that town meeting consider adopting the statute so we could create a compensated balances budget line item. And as Ms. Cabri has identified, ultimately that line item would have about $150,000 in it. We're looking to start at $50,000 and build up to that. And then from there, we would be able to pay the compensated balances, whether they're retirements or separations, without having to go to the reserve fund, and also allows better planning and transparency for those funds moving forward. And finally, this year is an example, we do know of 3 retirements in the town in the next budget cycle. We will factor for those in the budget like we always do in the departments, because it's unclear whether, A, that the board is gonna put this forward, and also it's subject to town meeting approval. But moving forward, we would be able to then fund those retirements from the compensated balances. Ms. Cabri and I look at, as well as some of the other finance departments, if you look at the town's personnel over the next, just the next 5 years alone, there are significant retirements on the horizon, and we determine that based on folks' years of service and age. In some cases, in some of the public safety departments, there are mandatory retirements, but in other cases, and we're very happy for folks and thank them for their service, we have a lot of retirements coming up. So we felt that this would be an ideal time for the town to consider creating this budget line item and funding it with the goal of over the next 3 years getting up to $150,000.
I'm not sure I can add much to what you said, Robert. I have estimated about 30 additional retirements within the next 5 years. Some of those are key officials too. They're long-term employees who have accumulated a lot of sick time and a lot of vacation time, which is a good thing for the town that they're long-term employees. At the same time, it makes it difficult to pay these out just out of the reserve fund. I mean, there may be a year that we wipe out the reserve fund by just retirement. So I did contact DUI to see if there was a mechanism. And there is this reserve fund that we can create. It's a special reserve for retirees who have benefits, retirement payout benefits, I'll call them. And we can put money into it. Because we have $478,000 is everybody in the whole town. So it's obviously they're new people too, so they're not likely going anywhere. But there are a lot of people who've been here for a very long time, myself included, who will be retiring within, he says 10 years. I stayed with him 5 years. But not the whole, we're not looking to fund the whole $478,000. I think it's key that we put something fairly significant in now, especially since we've had a good free cash year. We can afford to do it. And so Robert's right, we're recommending $50,000, and I'm sure he's gonna talk about it more when he talks about free cash, uses of free cash this year. Anything to add?
Any questions? I was part of the discussion on the town board, and the town board itself was very supportive of this move.
I don't have any questions. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with it.
I think, actually, I did have one question. Just, you said getting to 150,000, so I'm guessing that 50,000 a year for the next couple of years going forward. Would there be any chance that that would be something you'd want to change, depending on like what your calculations? You said there's possibly 30 people over the next 5 years. Could you see a point where like next year it would make more sense to have 75,000 instead of 50?
I mean, I think we should look at it from year to year,
Okay.
depending on how many we think may be going out. We may have better knowledge and be able to build it into people's department, but there's no requirement to let someone know a year ahead of time.
No, absolutely.
When they're retiring, so.
But just best projections.
Right, no, I think we should evaluate that year to year. Also, what funds are available, so, you know.
Anything else? Thank you, Lisa.
Sorry.
So in terms of next steps then, what I would recommend is we will prepare a draft warrant article through town council, because this has to be adopted by town meeting. And we would need town meeting to act affirmatively on the article to create the account. And the article could also, at the same time, assuming it passes, fund that first 50,000. As I mentioned though, for the purposes of planning the FY21 budget, because we don't know, it may not pass town meeting, the 3 retirements that I spoke of will be funded through the departments like we have the traditional way. So that would be So the board would see it in terms of next steps. We'll get it at least on the warrant in draft form, and we can discuss further.
Perfect.
Thank you. The next item, item 4, there's no objection from the board. I'd ask Mr. Kevin Johnston, the Benefits and Payroll Manager, to join us at the table. And I believe Kevin has a presentation. As Ms. Gabri mentioned, and we're going to talk about this momentarily, about the issue of free cash. The town of Ayer is in a strong position and a fortunate position that there's over $1.7 million in free cash this year. And Kevin brought to the internal finance group this potential idea that we've discussed with the BI board and we want to discuss with the BOS and the FinCom about forward funding the town's pension assessment. And in doing that, there are potential significant future savings. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin to sort of give an overview of the concept and sort of our thoughts on that moving forward.
Thank you, Robert. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in your packets tonight is some information that was collected and put together. The first slide is from our actuary at Middlesex County Retirement Siegel Associates. And it's an illustration of what the cost savings the town would see if we would forward fund the pension for 2 consecutive years at both $300,000 and $400,000 additional contributions. The analogy I would draw is very similar to making an extra mortgage payment a year, except that you keep the asset. You shift it from your own cash bucket to an asset at Middlesex Retirement, so you reduce your unfunded liability going forward. The illustration is pretty self-evident. Given all the parameters and the variables are met in the actuarial analysis, this is an illustration of what would have happened had we been able to make this decision a couple of years ago. So $200,000 to $300,000 payments in consecutive years, and I say consecutive years because it's a biannual actuarial analysis done at Middlesex Retirement. So they're able to say for us, example, $1.3 million in savings through 2035, the year of full funding the pension, with $300,000 contributions, $1.7 million in budget savings with 2 $400,000 contributions. And
Can we go to the next slide?
yes, please, thank you.
Yeah.
So that's illustrated there in the next slide. And we also, when we asked for the analysis, we were talking about the $300,000 and $400,000 numbers. We also included a $200,000 payment valuation, which is simply half of the $400,000 at $868,000 savings. So there are significant budget savings that would be realized over the next several years. It's not all at once, so you'd have an expense now and realize it over the next several years, provided the actuarial assumptions are met. As Robert stated, we're in a good financial position to make these extra payments or consider making them this fiscal year. It does provide some budget relief in future years to the sum of the $1.8 million or something around there. And if we continue to do this beyond what you're considering for this budget year and future years, we could actually fully fund our pension earlier than the current estimate of 2035.
Excellent.
Okay, so the recommendation for you tonight, for your consideration, is a $200,000 payment in this fiscal year with future years to be discussed. I think we should, my recommendation is to include it in the budget discussion in fiscal '22 and certainly consider it in 2023 going forward. Don't do it one time and then let it go by the wayside.
Right.
Consider it going
Yeah, it
forward.
definitely makes sense to keep going if we can.
If we can.
If we're in a strong financial position.
Any questions that I can answer for you tonight?
Any questions?
No.
Okay. I don't have any questions. I think it's a great idea. We're in a good position, so might as well lower our future expenses if we can.
I agree.
Excellent.
Robert, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as the board's aware, in terms of this one, in terms of next steps, will ultimately be a budgetary decision by the Board of Selectmen. And it'll be a good segue into the free cash discussion because there are several options, whether it's $400,000, $300,000, $200,000, depends on ultimately the board and town meeting in terms of the use of the free cash. So I'll ask Lisa, Lisa come back up
Oh, Lord.
Sorry. Oh, you have that? Oh, yeah, perfect.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't do anything. She's been carrying all the free cash around.
Actually,
There was a time when you couldn't save for.
let's bring a wood in the house.
Yeah. So just to frame the issue, and we wanted to come to the board to have a initial public discussion with the board about free cash. And as the board's aware, but also for the public's benefit, ultimately, it's the people's money, and we're here to make professional recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen, as the elected officials ultimately will put forth on the warrant what you decide to put forth for consideration. And then town meeting does vote on it. But I thought it would be helpful for us to have an initial discussion, and also to demonstrate also for the public that how we arrive at some of these decisions that then at town meeting are made regarding free cash. So the slide that you have on your packet, and that's up on the screen, shows that the certified free cash for the town of Ayer is at $1,727,437 as of June 30th, 2019. And I think that's something that the entire town should be very proud of. The Board of Selectmen, all our boards and committees, departments, and the people of Ayer, as we know many of our peer communities and so forth are struggling financially. We continue to be in a strong position through a lot of hard work, and we don't take that for granted in a very conservative approach. So that's what, if you will, is on the table for consideration in the discussion. And then think of this, just frame the discussion as sort of a menu of options. First of all, just to point out, there are no prior year bills known at this time, but as the board is aware, free cash sort of, this 1.7 sort of moves along with us in the budget process. So things are still happening and so forth that we have to address. There could be a prior year bill that we would need to address. Of course, the board will know as soon as we do. The second category is if there was a need for a supplemental appropriation to any of the town's enterprise funds, water, sewer, ambulance, solid waste. In past years, there have been times where there needed to be a supplemental appropriation. The good news as of right now, we don't know of any at this time. The next one is the UDAG replenishment on the Worthingdale lawsuit. As the board is aware, over on the right, $703,380 was authorized from the UDAG by the Board of Selectmen to resolve the Worthingdale lawsuit, as well as the acquisition of land. When Ms. Cabri and I looked at the recommendation for the replenishment and repayment of that, looking to do it basically in thirds over a 3-year period, $230,000 has already been replenished by town meeting. We're recommending again this spring another amount of $230,000. Of course, the board could decide to increase that amount. Of course, then it'll have to come from another source, but we believe that at the $230,000, it's consistent with the plan for the total replenishment. The next category, the GASB 45, the OPEB. As the board is aware, we do have an OPEB Board of Trustees that has affirmed the town's policy over the last several years. Our OPEB contribution of $300,000 each year is made up of both the meals, the local meals tax, and then that amount supplemented by the free cash. So we're recommending $170,300 in free cash, the rest coming from the meals tax for that $300,000 on the OPEB. We did look into the issue, as we just talked about, forward funding the pension. We did look in to see, was there any savings or is there any benefit to the town forward funding its OPEB obligations? Unfortunately, there's no incentive like there is on the forward funding of the pension, so we're recommending we stay on track with the $300,000. The forward funding pension proposal that Kevin just presented on, we have, Lisa, I have put $200,000 here. As you saw, there were some other options, a $400,000, a $300,000. Again, the board could decide to do a higher amount or a lesser amount, but a higher amount, it'll just have to come from another source within this menu. The compensated absences, as Lisa mentioned, if town meeting approves that article at town meeting, we're looking for $50,000 to start the funding there. Lisa, as always, planning and looking ahead, we have a $50,000 placeholder. You see the question marks for any extraordinary increase in the school assessment. We have the Neshoba Valley Tech assessment, which there was a $106,000 increase. It's not quite in that category. We're waiting to see what comes down from the Ayer Shirley Regional School District. Capital stabilization funding, and looking at this with Lisa, the capital planning committee, and talking with a DPW and so forth, we're recommending ideally putting $1 million in capital stabilization. What's the current balance?
It's almost $2 million, right? As of June 30, it was almost $2 million.
So there's about $2 million in there, which the town has made a great effort over the last recent years to build up. As we all know, every town, Ayer included, huge capital needs. A significant capital issue can happen at any time that can cost considerable. For example, even on the PFAS, we're fortunate with the Army on the Grove Pond piece. We're working on the Spec Pond piece. And we feel that continuing to put a significant amount in capital stabilization is in the town's best interest. Again, this is our recommendation. It doesn't have to be $1 million. If we alter some of these other things I was mentioning, it probably come from there. But I think moving in a direction that the lion's share is in capital stabilization is good planning for the future. The last amount, the stabilization funding, which Lisa, what's our balance?
2.6 million.
2.6 million. Stabilization funding, again, the town has worked very hard to build that up. The Department of Revenue does give a benchmark. I think it's about 1 point. I'm trying to remember what their guidance, 1 point.
What's the percentage?
It's a
I think it's 8% of the operating budget, and we're well above it, so.
Yeah, you should have it's 8%. We're above that, but of course, we still want to continue to save, if you will, and so there is, again, as there was last year, a smaller amount going into stabilization moving forward. And of course, investment in both of these funds, which the town has done, has resulted in a favorable bond rating and also a very favorable borrowing climate. So if you add this together as we have it, that would be the uses of the free cash as we see it, Lisa and I, as well as with the departments and the internal finance group. Of course, there are some decisions for the board to consider, but we wanted to start that discussion. Also, we're not aware of, as of right now, if there's any other expenditure that presents itself that would warrant coming from the free cash. Of course, we'd let the BOS and the FinCom know.
Again, you said it
Any
all.
questions?
So I was just wondering about exploring being more aggressive on the forward funding of the pension, bumping that up to at least $300,000 and taking $100,000 from the projected capital stabilization, since that fund seems to be pretty well funded, and I think the $100,000 wouldn't really coming from that wouldn't be too much of a negative.
I have no objection. This is just one scenario
absolutely.
for you
Yeah.
guys to actually discuss this. This is policy making in my mind.
And I was just curious, I think I read, and I'm not sure if it was in here or not, but forward funding also has a positive effect on bond rating, correct? The forward funding the pension, so it wouldn't
Oh,
affect.
it does.
Oh,
Yeah.
It does.
Okay. Yeah, I have no issues if we want to up the pension proposal from the 200,000 higher. The only thing on the capital stabilization we discussed at buy board is we have a lot of potential large projects coming down the pipeline. This could help defer some of the costs. So it's kind of a balancing act of which one do we want to fund. But I think the forward funding of the pension would have a more positive impact in the longer run. Okay.
And I guess just for my own knowledge, on the increase in school assessment, is that 50,000? How did you come up with that? Is it
I
just-
didn't, I don't know what it is yet, it's more of a placeholder than anything else.
Okay.
In the past, we've had
It's-
some extraordinary, and we've also had some extraordinary increases driven by contractual, the first year of contract.
Yeah, okay.
Firefighters or whatever, so that was just a placeholder, if
I wasn't
you
sure if
will.
it was like a number
No,
that's like typical.
I don't
or-
even know what their assessment's gonna be yet,
Okay.
so.
All right, thank you.
So for example, if we get the assessment, say 2 weeks from now, you may have to come back and say, okay, that 50,000 I was talking about, we need to put it to 75,000.
Possibly,
Yeah.
but this is definitely a draft, it's definitely a
Right.
work in progress, it's for you guys to all discuss and give us some direction, basically. This is many good ideas, I think. I mean, we know there's gonna be elementary school at some point. And in my mind, yeah, the more we can pay for it, the less debt exclusion, that means the taxpayers are impacted less. That's- But forward funding is always a good idea too. It's nice to be in this position.
Yeah.
It is.
No, I think this is great. I think that this first draft is very great too, so.
Any other questions?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Just let me
Appreciate
get
it.
up.
Thank you.
But wait a minute, before she gets up, you can meet her again.
Lisa, you've been excellent. That's it.
Okay.
That's it. So we again thank the board for the opportunity, some information to be thinking about, and this won't be obviously this is the first, won't be the last discussion, and we'll be also doing a similar thing with the finance committee as well, and then as we get towards the end of the process, sort of through the board, we make the decisions as to the final amounts and so forth. Okay. Switching off of budgetary items, number 6, as mentioned before, Tuesday, March 3rd is the presidential primary, and in accordance with the Secretary of State's office, there should not be any public meetings during active voting. Of course, the town hall is a polling place, and polls will be open at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Normally, you would be scheduled to meet Tuesday, March 3rd at 6 p.m., so we're asking the board to select an alternative date and time.
So somehow it got out that the Board of Selectmen had already decided to meet on March 4th. And just gonna,
I don't remember.
I slept through that vote evidently because I was searching and couldn't find it. So I'm just gonna say, March 4th does work for me. But we have to be very careful when we're rescheduling a meeting if we haven't decided on it, to make it very clear to everybody, we haven't decided on it. Because it did cause some confusion. And so I had to tell a few people to just, pencil it in, but, just don't ink it yet. So, but on that, March 4th would be the next night. So I do think it's a good idea to meet as soon as possible after a regularly scheduled meeting. So on that note, March 4th does work for me.
I believe it works for me too.
That'll work for me.
Okay, so we'll do the March 4th.
At 6,
Okay.
Wednesday, March 4th. Thank you. And then the last item, as I put in the board's packet, as part of the 2020 census, the United States Census apparently has a boundary validation program where they send, and the board has all of the information. Unfortunately, the maps, which I have here, were too large to scan. But what the US Census is looking for is the Board of Selectmen to, or the town, to review the town's boundaries maps, and then for the Board of Selectmen to vote to approve the maps, and for signature by the chair, there's a form which is in the packet to submit. So I took all of the maps, and the maps were reviewed at length by the assessor, the town planner, and the town engineer, and the maps and the boundaries as presented line up with all of the records that the assessors, planner, town engineer have. It lines up with the GIS system, so everything does appear to be in order. And I did bring the maps if the board wants to look them over. There were no anomalies, there were no issues. So we're respectfully recommending that the board vote to approve the U.S. Census Boundary Validation Program.
Does anyone want to look at the map?
At least one of them.
And the departments did spend a considerable amount of time. So here's the reference map of the town.
Oh, you're cute.
And then,
You gonna be able to fold these back up?
I think so, yes. And then it breaks it into, so this is the western portion of the town that borders Shirley. And then the eastern portion of the town that borders Littleton and of course Harvard to the south and Groton to the north. But Tom Hogan, our assessor, Mark Archibald, the town planner, and Dan Van Schalwick, the town engineer, spent quite a bit of time reviewing them for the board and verifying all of the data points and so forth. This is the eastern tip of the town, yeah. So the main thing the program is asking for is for any technical errors or deviations from the existing, and these are all of the existing maps, and for the town to correct them, but between planning, DPW, and assessors, who are our three major land use departments, there were no issues.
I can see my house from here.
Can you really?
Great, excellent. Thank you.
And that's with signature by the chair.
Yes, yep.
Any other questions? Yes. I'll make a motion to approve the U.S. Census Boundary Validation Program as presented for signature by the chair.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Thank you.
Unless there are any other questions from the selectmen, that completes my report, and I thank all of you for your time and opportunity this evening.
All right, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is new business, selectmen's questions, which we did add the rate review committee for Selectmen Livingston this evening.
So we had a meeting at 4 o'clock today, and previously when I talked to you, I said that we would like to have the rate review, the water sewer rate public hearing on a separate night. So we've come up with the proposed dates. It would be an off night for the Board of Selectmen. It would be an off Tuesday. Tuesday, March 24th at 6 p.m. or Tuesday, March 31st at 6 p.m. We ask that if you can't make the decision tonight, that by Friday, you notify Robert. The reason why we want to ensure, so that we can start publicizing it as soon as possible, and that way we can get back to the committee as far as, you know, what night it'll be.
Okay, and that's by Friday?
Yes, if you can't decide tonight, yes, by Friday, so that we can start the process. Okay?
All right, I'll have to check the master calendar at home.
Okay.
Either night works
Yeah.
for me.
And then, just to touch, he talked about Devon's, I really have no update since the
Okay.
last time I gave an update, so maybe next month.
Okay.
And just logistically, looking at the calendar, so March 24th is a scheduled meeting of the planning board. They could go upstairs, we've done it before. March 31st, because it's the 5th Tuesday of the month, there would be nothing getting in the way that night.
Okay.
So just put it out there. Either works, we can make it work, but
Okay.
just so you're aware.
All right, thanks. Okay. Next is approval of meeting minutes for February 4th, 2020. I reviewed them and didn't have any edits.
I didn't have any edits.
I don't think I saw anything either.
So I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 4th.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair says aye. That's approved. All right, so the last item is the Board of Selectmen is going to move into executive session and then adjourn right after executive session, after we come out of executive session. So I'll ask the clerk to read the exemption. Sure.
It's right under there.
Yeah, just on the bottom.
Executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A. 1, exemption number 3, litigation strategy. Riley Jane Farm LLC and Cowfield Realty Trust versus Diesel Direct Incorporated et al. And Diesel Direct Incorporated versus Ayer Shirley Regional School District et al.
All right. Roll call the vote to go into executive session. John?
Aye.
James?
Aye.
Chair says aye. So we're in executive session.